Okay. What about limiting beliefs about yourself? You know, I love this saying that you and I are as free or as limited as the story we tell ourselves about ourselves. Whatever story you tell yourself about yourself will either free you or it will limit you. You think about what kind of limiting beliefs do you have about yourself? What kind of limiting beliefs do you have about other people? I was really challenged this week. I'm telling you what, I was really, really challenged this week. Sarah's taken a week away just to sit and walk on the beach and pray and think and talk. And so she, we began to go back and unravel this one situation that we'd had with an individual that, in a lot of ways, and today, I might not be able to extend as much forgiveness as I'll be able to extend tomorrow or the next day or a month from now, or as much as I am able. So I'm running along, and God reminded me, you extend to yourself the privilege of being inside your own world as much as you are able. Why don't you extend that to others as well? And I was cut to the heart because I realized that what I thought was honesty was often judgment. And what I thought held other people's feet to the fire for their benefit came across as me being wiser or whatever. And I realized, you know what, Father? I've been there for a short period of time, was going back to Canada, and just as we were ending our term there, there was a young man in our congregation that had, his heart had gone out to what in Southern California are known as the trolls. Do you know what a troll is? You know, the little creatures that live under bridges in myth and story? Yeah. Well, there's trolls in North Hollywood especially, because North Hollywood is very hilly. You've seen the hill that the big Hollywood sign is on, the Hollywood Hills. So there's bridges everywhere for all the roads, and homeless people live under the bridges, and drag mattresses under there, and a few little living utensils, and the trolls live under the bridge, and the trolls have a whole culture of their own. They have their troll names, and they lose their real names, and they have their troll names, and it's a whole culture, and that culture is soaked in prostitution and drugs and alcohol. And it is so far removed from normal culture and a long, long way from the Hollywood culture. There was a guy in our church that fell in love with the trolls. He and his wife would go out every Saturday morning, and they would set up a barbecue, and they would cook a big meal and bring fresh fruits and vegetables and whatever they could. And it took them months of setting up in this one area before they would even be trusted, before people would even come out and begin to take food and whatever from them. And they began to build relationships with some of these people and just love on them and tell them how much Christ loved them. And we did a big fundraising concert to help them with the work that they were doing. They brought some of the trolls that were willing to come and talk to this white upper class church, you know. There was a young man there that made an impact on my life that reverberates to this day. He said, I was 10 years old when my mom and dad split up. And he was about 11 and a half, and his dad came and collected him, whatever foster home or whatever he was in. Took him out, and they were driving along the Hollywood freeway, and his dad pulled out a knife and reached over, plunged it into his abdomen, pulled it out, opened the passenger door, and pushed him out on the road, leaving him for dead. He was found by a passerby, taken to the hospital, recovered, But by the time he was 13, he was living on the street. The only way that he could support himself was through male prostitution. The pain of that became so huge, he became a speed freak. I don't know if you've ever seen a speed freak, but when you do a lot of speed, you don't eat. You're just awake night and day, and what you want is sugar all the time. So lots of times when you encounter a speed freak, their teeth are rotted out of their head because all they've eaten is chocolate bars and sugar and no real food. So they're as skinny as a pole. And he was 21 years old. He said, I've got AIDS. I don't have a lot of life left. But he said, Jesus has come into my heart and He's really changed my life. And then he made this statement. He said, my life has changed so dramatically. I don't get drunk till noon now. And I sat in the back of the church and I bawled. Because you see, if I told you that I don't get drunk till noon, perhaps there's a problem there. Because of who I am. Just as an individual and the issues. But for him, I'll tell you, that was an enormous breakthrough. A young man who normally got up and the first thing he did was grab a cheap bottle of wine that there wasn't a grape within 100 miles of that bottle, you know? I mean, it was just grab a cheap bottle of wine, and immediately from the time your eyes were open to be absolutely drunk out of your mind to quench the pain, he said, I don't get drunk till noon now. Jesus has so changed my life. And I realized how big my limiting beliefs can be towards other people. But how big the embrace of God is. So how do we change limiting beliefs to liberating beliefs? And how then surrender? Being very deliberate about it. When Peter wasn't that deliberate, he slipped right back into his limiting belief. We have to think it through. You have to think through your limiting beliefs about yourself, your limiting beliefs about God, your limiting beliefs about others. Deliberately think them through, write them down, determine. I am going to try to have beliefs as big as God Himself. I am going to try to have beliefs as big as God Himself. The story I tell about God will be huge. The story I tell about me will be huge. The story I tell about others will be huge. There's a little play that was written by some French authors. It's really quite a tongue-in-cheek play. It's about heaven. And everybody dies. And everybody shows up at heaven. And as the mythical pearly gates Peter is letting people in, he's letting everybody in. And there's this group of ultra self-righteous, super religious, straight as an arrow, never did anything wrong, as righteous and white as can be people who are watching this, and they're incensed that everybody's getting into heaven, and all these scallywags, and they're getting into heaven, and they get so upset that they decide if those people go to heaven, we don't want to go, so they all go to hell. And I thought, yeah, I think I like that play. I think I like that quite a bit.